You notice we got a lot of clubs at our high school, and it's on the website, whether it's a gaming club or there's basketball drop-ins and yearbook. There's everything to do in high school, and you should get involved in something. I'm going to promote the St. Vincent de Paul Society. We had a meeting yesterday. I started it, and Mrs. F is running it now. I took a step back. In fact, this year I was supposed to do my own thing with the Special Olympics and Tudor Manor, but obviously with COVID, that's kind of not going to happen. Although I did email the seniors and see if we can send them e-cards, because some of them can't even see their families. I would say most of them probably can't even see their families. So we want to help them. Last 8 years we've done everything. We've done helping the church with different stuff. We've done the mustard seed. We've done soup kitchen. We've helped the food bank. We get jackets. People who need jackets. We've had dinner with the mayor, and we serve that, and it's awesome. We've done Tudor Manor every Christmas. We sing with them at the Christmas concert, and give them gifts and make them cards, and it's something that I would encourage you to keep in mind. Myself, it's a tough time with COVID. My daughter brought some fundraising stuff home from their school, selling mixes and stuff like that, and I told them we're not going door to door. No one wants you to go door to door with COVID and drop anything off. So it's tough, but people still need other people and need charity. So if you're not able to do it this year, and I don't know how much we can do this year, I think Mrs. Epp was just talking about the jackets. If you have any extra jackets, please bring them so people can stay warm in the winter, people that can't afford jackets, and that includes kids, families. I mean, myself, we grew up with not much. We used to eat cereal at the end of the month. We didn't have any money. We always got help from the food bank with turkeys at Christmas and Thanksgiving because we couldn't afford it. So I like to give back. Some people don't have jackets, and then when you think of kids not having jackets in the winter, that's even worse, I think. So try to help out if you have extra jackets. That's something we can do easily. But also keep in mind, if it's not this year, next year there's St. Vincent de Paul, and that's just 3 years of your life in high school. Do this your whole life until you're 105 years old. You want to help each other. You want to help others. You want to make others happy. That should be your goal in life. Okay, my girls and I, and Knight as well, we do a lot of the summer. We fundraise for a variety of different charities. It's awesome. I hope they do it with their kids. St. Vincent de Paul, I've been involved for 8 years. All those students in St. Vincent de Paul are great people. They have big hearts. It's a good way to meet good people and become friends with good people at our school. People that care about each other and want to help others. It's awesome. I'm telling you right now, you want to be there, and hopefully next time you hear the meeting you can go, or just wait till next year, and hopefully everything clears up and we can do all that stuff that I told you we've done every year. Christmas concert, mustard seed, soup kitchen, food bank. You don't have to do all of them, but just do what you can. Okay? We're doing Decomp, and if you had any questions on your homework, let me know on this stuff. Otherwise, we're just going to do more Decomp today, so I think we'll just move on with new questions. Was the homework okay? With slice and dice and common binomials, sum product first. All right, good. The head shaking. So let's go on to GCF Decomposition, which is in your textbook. I'm not going to ask you a lot of these. Decomposition is long enough without having a GCF to take out, but there might be one. Okay, and I like to practice because it's always good to look for a GCF right off the bat. So find somewhere to write these 3 questions. We're going to do one together, do one on your own, and then one for homework. We're just going to do it in class so you don't have to worry about it for homework. And that's, I'm going to write it here. I'm not sure where you're going to write it. But this is the textbook, page 178. And 19A says, 18A, sorry, says 20R squared plus 70R plus 60. Okay, so let's do that one together. You'll do this one on your own. And then we'll give you 5 minutes to do the other one. Okay, so this is a GCF Decomp, so it's a two-stepper. If you're on a separate page, you might want to write down GCF Decomp. First step is always to see if you can take a GCF out. Otherwise, you're going to have two numbers that multiply to 1,200 and add to 70. If you get big numbers for some product, it means you probably didn't take a GCF out. Okay, I haven't asked you many big numbers, and you're probably not going to get two numbers that multiply to 1,152 and add to 56. Okay, that's something that you probably missed a GCF out. So here we're going to take out a 10. And instead of finding two numbers that multiply to 1,200, we're going to find two numbers that multiply to 12. That sounds a lot better. So divide everything by 10, GCF first, and then remember, we have one-steppers and we're done. We also have a lot of two-steppers where we evaluate what's in the bracket, whether we can difference or square it, sum product it, or in this case, decomp it. Okay, so now it starts with 2r squared. This is a decomp question. Two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 7 are 3r and 4r. I'm going to put square brackets. You don't have to, or you can put a larger circular bracket. But now I'm going to work inside here. So I'm going to write down the first term, 2r squared, the last term, plus 6. And then the green 7r is going to break up into 4r plus 3r. Or vice versa. Just like we did yesterday. Only difference is there's a 10 sticking out the side. That's the GCF. Now we take out a 2r. We take out a 3. And then we take out the common binomial. Don't forget to bring down the 10 the whole time. Don't lose it. And the common binomial is r plus 2, and whatever is not r plus 2 goes into the second. You can keep the square brackets or turn them into just normal brackets. Okay, so one extra step, just the GCF, and then it's a decomp question. So go ahead and try this one, knowing it's a GCF decomp question. Start with sum product. Create a grouping question. Make 3 terms into 4 terms. Slice and dice, do the grouping question. And then you're going to have 2 brackets with the GCF in front of it. So go ahead and take the GCF out of B. And if you don't know 13 times 5 equals 65, then you use your calculator. And your calculator knows it. Okay, this is a good quote about helping others. And this is pray and give thanks to all the workers who have helped with the COVID and who have not stayed home and have helped others through the times, doctors, nurses, everyone who is involved in the risk. My one good friend, she's a nurse, and she had to work with patients who had COVID, and she has 2 boys, so again, we just pray that God protects us and protects everyone who is sacrificing their safety, and blankets them with a blanket of guardian angels. And we pray that all of our friends and family and ourselves stay healthy. Let's pray to the Lord. Amen. Okay, let's do the next question, which is take a 5 out. GCF. That becomes 3a squared, so just divide everything by 5. If you want to do that, you can, but don't forget to put the 5. Okay, so sometimes I see students do that, but then they don't put the 5 down, and that's not the same. 15a squared is not the same as 3a squared. You need that 5 down there. Subtract 13 apples plus 4z, and then you need two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to negative 13, and that's negative 12 apples and negative 1 apples. And keep your 3a squared and your last term the same. Create a grouping question by breaking down the middle term into negative 12a subtract 1a. This should be a plus 4. And now slice and dice. So you get 5 times, this is where the square bracket comes in for me, a subtract 4 subtract 1 times a subtract 4. There we go. Take out the a subtract 4, and the leftovers go in the brackets. Everything that's not underlined goes in the second bracket. Anybody get that? Check. Yup. Right on. Good stuff. If you were to FOIL this and distribute, or distribute into the first bracket and FOIL, you would get this trinomial that you started with. I'm not going to ask you to check that, but you could check this part and make sure you get 3a squared subtract 13a, negative 1 subtract 12 is negative 13 plus 4. And that's going to be helping find any mistakes or sign mistakes that you made, and give you a peace of mind. Okay, let's do C now. That's for homework, but let's work on it now for 5 minutes. Okay, let's come back and GCF decomp this guy, two-stepper. So I'm not going to ask you two numbers to multiply to negative 324 and add to 15. If you get big giant numbers, you probably missed the GCF. Maybe not, but probably. So you can take a 3 out. You get 6h squared plus 5h, subtract 6. Then you need two numbers that multiply to negative 36 and add to 5. Still the middle number. And what numbers are those? Thank you.
Plus minus 5.
Good. So 4h and negative 9h. And soon, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to teach you how to do Coca Cola Shuffle. And I need 3 times something equals negative 9, and 2 times something that equals 4. Is that the answer you got? Using Decomp? You get the same answer. So it's going to work. I'll show you how to do it, and we'll do it a little later. But let's do it the Decomp way, because that's what you know right now. So you keep the first term and last term the same. You split the 5h into 4h subtract. Okay, you know what? This time it might be a little easier if we don't have negatives as your third term, because you have to take a negative out. You don't have to do it, but if I have something like that, I'm going to just use my math brain, and I don't love taking negatives out, so I'm going to just put the negative number first. Negative 9h plus 4h, and then I don't have to take a negative out of the last two terms. Doesn't matter. If you do, you do. You'll get the exact same answer. Remember equal signs. Remember the 3. Take out 3h or 3h squared. Yep.
Your numbers for negative 9.
Yes, thank you very much. Millionth math mistake. That's okay. I'm over it. So plus 9, yes. So mine would have not worked out, and I would have checked it using the FOIL, and there would have been a sign mistake, and I had to find that. Thank you. So is 3h or 3h squared do I take out? Okay, always taking an h out. You guys, we did this 10 times yesterday. We always took an h out here. We always took no h out here because this number doesn't have an h. So by now you should know you have to take an h out of this one, these two, and not an h out of these two. It's a number. So don't guess. So 3H, which is 2H plus 3. And then that's a negative, so negative 2. So I guess my shortcut didn't really work. Negative 2 to get 2H plus 3. That's the common binomial. So I'm happy, happy, happy. 3 times 2H plus 3 times 3H subtract 2. How does that look? Up. Okay. Lots of thumbs up. Right on. Okay. So again, 1 at the most on your test of decomp questions. I'm not planning to take a GCF out, but it's a good habit. You have to take a GCF out. Look how much easier made these numbers when you took a 3 out. Now you're just looking for negative 36 and 5. Okay. Rid of those. Try that again. Oh, almost. Okay, so let's go to this Coca Cola Shuffle. And it's another option with Decomp. It's a lot shorter, as you saw. And I'll explain to you how to do it. It's the exact same first step. It's sum product. Okay, so the exact same first step. Let's go ahead and do the product of 12 and the sum of 7, which we saw twice yesterday, 3x and 4x. Step 1, done. We don't just put 3x and 4x in the brackets. We just created our middle terms. These are the middle terms. That's what we saw yesterday. That's what we wrote yesterday. These are the middle terms. In decomposition, we broke them up to become the middle terms. Now that was decomposition. We're not going to do that in Coca Cola Shuffle. The second step, factor means create brackets, is to create the 2x squared. The only way you can create a 2x squared is 2x times x, or vice versa. Okay, when you FOIL that gives you 2x squared. Everyone over here, please. Thank you. Write that down. Now, write this down if you want, but you don't have to. When we FOIL, we have to know where our middle terms come from. If I FOIL 3x subtract 1 times 2x plus 5, well, the first term comes from the first arrow, so 6x squared. That's kind of what we just did with 2x times x. But the middle terms come from the O arrow and the I arrow. Plus 15x, subtract 2x. Those middle terms come from the blue arrows, always. And then if you FOIL it off, you have a constant at the end, number at the end. So the next step is to draw the O and the I arrows, because those are the arrows that create the middle terms. And I always like starting with the big number. So 2x times what equals 3x to 4x? 2x times what equals 4x? Good job, plus 2. Now, you're close. Sometimes I see students put the 2 close to the 2x because they think that goes together, but remember what FOILing is. It's this times this that gives you the middle term. So that gives us a 4x. Now I need a 3x. So x times what? Equals 3x. But plus 3. Good job. You can see that's much shorter than slice and dice. So let's try a few of these together and then on your own. Now we're going to check using FOIL, so I didn't make a sign mistake like I did last time. So we get 2x squared, yep. 4x plus 3x is 7x, and 3 times 2 is equal to 6. Alyssa, thank you. Write that down, and let's go on to B. Okay, B, same first step. Go ahead and do sum product. Again, same first step, just like decomp. Exactly the same. Find the two numbers that multiply to this and add to this. And we can do that quickly because we're multiplying 5 times 2 to get 10. And both of those add to 7, so this one gives us a 5x and a 2x. Those are our middle terms. Second step is to create a 5x squared, 5x times x. Everyone good so far? Agree? 5x times x? So you can put x times 5x, same thing. Now you have to create these middle terms with these green arrows. So 5x times what equals 5x? 1. Where do I put it, left or right? Right there. That makes your 5x. Now I need a 2x. X times 2. I put a plus 2 there. If you FOIL that, you get 5x squared. 5x plus 2x is 7x, and 2 times 1 is 2. Let's do one more before you try this one on your own. Any questions on AB? Subproduct, create the first term, and then create the middle terms by the O arrow and the I arrow. Okay, C is a little trickier because you have more than one factor of 6. Okay, for A, only 1 times 2 equals 2, only 1 times 5 equals 5. But in this case, we got to create a 6x squared, so there's two options, 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Let's start the same way. Two numbers are multiplied at negative 18 and add to 17 are 18 and negative 1. And now to create the 6x squared, there's two options. And only one of them works. It's either 6x times x, or it's 2x times 3x. That's the only way you get 6x squared. Agreed? Only one of them is going to work to get 18 and negative 1. So you try the first one. 6 times something equal 18. And then does something times something x equal negative 1? Yes. So you can use the first one. Let's show you why you can't use the second one. The second one, you can get your 18 from the 2 or the 3, but negative 1, you can't get negative 1 because it's smaller than 2 and 3. Okay, unless you multiply by a fraction. We're not going to multiply by fractions when we're doing Decomp or Coca Cola Shuffle. So this is the one. 6 times y equals 18. So you pick the colors. So this one gives you the 18. 6 times 3. And then what times x equals negative 1x? I just put subtract 1. This one doesn't work. You can just cross it off. Sometimes your first one won't work, and your second one works. It doesn't. You just have to figure it out. Okay, so try to do D. Okay, hopefully that's enough time. First step, do the exact same first step as Decomp. These two numbers are multiplied at negative 24 and add to negative 2. Somebody? Cricket. What are the numbers? Thank you. Negative 6 nacho cheese and 4 nacho cheese. Good. Multiply to negative 24, add to negative 2. Next step is to create this 3n squared. The only way you can do that is 3n times n, or vice versa. Next step is using FOIL, the O and the I arrows. You have to create your middle terms. That's what these are. These are your middle terms. So I like to start with the big number. 3 times what equals negative 6 or 4? 3 times. What's that? Oh, you're looking over here, I think. Okay, so 3 times what equals negative 6? Negative 2. That gives us a negative 6. And then what times n equals 4n? That gives us a 4n. Anybody get that? Check, check. Lots of thumbs. Good job. Did you get that anyway? Yep. Okay. So I know what you mean. And if you check it, just write down check using FOIL, because this is more of a guess and check thing. You get 3n squared, negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2, and you get your negative 8. It works. Okay, no other teacher is going to talk about Coca Cola Shuffle. This is how I used to do it. I'm not sure if I was taught this way or if I just did it, and I think I just did it because I've looked in several math textbooks and I've never found it anywhere, so I just call it the Coca Cola Shuffle. I'm never going to ask you to do the Coca Cola Shuffle. If you like it better, you can use it. If you get stuck on Decomp, then you have another option, and it might work because you might not find your mistake in Decomp. Okay, so the homework that's coming, you have your choice. Do whichever your favorite is. But again, no other teacher in this school is going to ask you to do Coca Cola Shuffle. It's always going to be use Decomp, use Decomp, use Decomp. Okay, so for me, it doesn't matter. I like this way. I'm proud of it, and it's nice and a lot shorter. So if you're not getting your Decomp questions right, you might want to try these. Now we did 10 Decomp questions. We're not going to do 10 of these. I'm showing it to you if you want extra work. Or you can always do all the Decomp questions again using Coca Cola Shuffle because you have the answers. Okay, let's move on. These 5 questions of homework. Coca Cola Shuffle. If you want me to remind you how to do it in grade 11 or 12, that's no problem. It's good for university because it's so quick. But again, it's completely optional, and I probably didn't invent it. I can't find it, but if you find out who did, let me know what it's called, and we'll give them proper credit. All right, you can see the quizzy here. That's tomorrow. That's mainly on difference of squares and decomp, but it could be on anything on factoring, okay? So that's quiz tomorrow. That's the first thing we do. These guys, you're going to see a splash of them on the test. Yeah, there's not a whole bunch of them. You're going to see a splash of them. So everyone go to page 38, please. And of all of them, you're going to see this the most, perfect square trinomials. And perfect square trinomials, we already talked about it when we multiplied polynomials. That means you have something that multiplied by itself, and the resulting trinomial is a perfect square trinomial. So if, for example, that one. So you know if I say perfect square trinomial, it's something multiplied by itself that gives you that trinomial. This factor shortcut, and it might even be easier on this one, but again, if you find 2 numbers that multiply to 1,156 and add to 64, those big numbers, you're probably missing the GCF, or you might be missing this one. If you can square root the first term and last term, it's probably a perfect square trinomial. So how you do it, get rid of that green underlined one, you square root the 49x squared. Remember, factor means create brackets. In fact, we're only going to create one bracket. My bad. Square root of 49x squared is 7x. Square root of 1 is 1. You take the sign of the middle term, and then don't forget what a perfect square trinomial means. It means that it's multiplied by itself 2 times. If you can recognize that, it's easier than doing decomp. If you do decomp, you'll get the same thing, and I'll mark it right. But again, you might have to deal with some bigger numbers, which isn't fun, especially when you can just do the square root of 49 and the square root of 1. The most common mistake is students do that and then forget the red 2. So don't forget. Some of you might be wondering, well, where is this negative 14x coming from? And if you FOIL this, you do get your negative 14x. You get negative 7x, subtract 7x, like terms, you get negative 14x. Okay, so it does, remember the shortcut, when you multiply this together, negative 7x and times 2, I call it the super shortcut, that gives you the negative 14x. So it's always going to be double. You're going to kind of see 20 in the bracket, but it's actually, if you multiply it by 2, you'll get your 40. Okay, so study star this one. And do this one the same way, please. And it shouldn't take you very long. Square root, take the sign of the middle term and put the exponent outside the bracket. And that's the perfect square trinomial. And then you can check it using FOIL or using the stupid shortcut. I mean the confusing shortcut. Bless you. Okay, this guy, if you recognize this, is you can square root the first term and last term, square root it, take the sign of the middle term, which is addition, and then don't forget your right exponent outside the bracket. If you FOIL that, you get 16, 20x plus 20x equals 40x, and 5x squared times 5x squared, it checks out. If you do decomp, you're going to find two numbers that multiply to 400 and add to 40. Not too bad, 20 times 20. And then, but you're going to have to slice and dice and do all that stuff. And you'll get the exact same answer. All right, next little heading. We saw something similar where there was a trick to a sum product when we had x squared and y squared at the beginning and the end. We had something like this, and then the numbers were 5 and 4 maybe, negative 5 plus 4, and then remember we had to get the y squared, so we added the y at the end. There's that one part. Well, this one's similar because we just have to add one little thing at the end. So you have to recognize that this is a sum product question. Sum product questions start with x squared. But they can also start with x to the 4th, or a to the 4th, or getting to the 6th, a to the 8th, or a to the 6th later on in high school. Okay, but this is kind of the same as x squared, and this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to use sum product. So we need two numbers that multiply to negative 14. Oh, I got to put a negative in there. Negative 14, and add to negative 5. The numbers are negative 7 and 2. So we put a subtract 7 and a plus 2. Now FOIL that, does that check out? Does a times a equal 8 to the 4th? No. So we have one little extra step like we did when we had y squared at the end. Anybody know what it is? How do we make this work? Got it? Exactly. We add this little step, we get our a to the 4th, and we get middle terms of a squared. 2a squared subtract 7a squared is negative 5a squared. So, one little step. Again, study start, so you remember how to do it. If you don't put the a squared, they'll give you some marks, but not full marks. And if you don't put the a squared on multiple choice, obviously you're going to get 0 marks. Same thing, go ahead and do B, please. Okay, so it doesn't start with x squared, but it does start with x to the 4th. We have done a couple of questions, study start, and you'll realize It's a sum product question. Two numbers that multiply to -5 and add to 4 are 5 and 1, -1. Looks good to me. Equal signs, create brackets, x plus 5 times x subtract 1. That gets us almost there. We have to do one more thing. X times x is not x to the 4th. X squared times x squared equals x to the 4th. Check? Okay. But that's not full marks. Why isn't that full marks? You'll get your 4x squared with a -1 plus 5. Good try. It's hard to see, but when you FOIL and collect like terms, you get your 4x squared. It's hard to see. Remember when we're not getting full marks, look inside the brackets. Can you factor this? This is a difference of squares, where you can square roots, one addition, one subtraction. So you would have to factor x squared subtract 1 is square root of x squared, square root of 1, one addition, one subtraction. As long as there's a subtraction sign in between. So if you see anything like this, probably not so much that one, but these ones will be more common. These last three. If you see anything like that, you have to further factor it. It's a two-stepper. Okay, I call it a tricky two-stepper. So you gotta watch out for it. Yep. Yep. Okay, so no one got that. That's okay. I didn't get that the first time I saw it either. Let's look out for them though. If you see anything like this. Now what about if this was one of your brackets? X squared plus 4. Is that equal to x subtract 2 times x plus 2? Or x plus 2 times x plus 2? No, you cannot factor it unless there's a subtraction sign in the middle. Okay, so you might see these ones with the addition signs. You can't do anything with those. They're tempting, but you can't do anything with those. It's only subtraction signs in the middle. Okay, let's move on to the next little section. Oh. Which is decomp. So same thing, I'll let you do it. Another decomp question. Instead of putting x squared, x in the middle. Actually, decomp, it doesn't matter. Your decomp, you'll be fine. You don't need to add anything. When I do Coca Shuffle, I'm going to have to add x squares instead of x's. Okay, started sum product. Keep the first and last term. Slice and dice. Check out the little brackets to see if there's a difference of squares. Okay, how do you tackle example 5? When you have x to the 4th, just treat it like it's x squared. Okay, so if it's an x squared, you have a 4x squared, you can't take a 4 out. That cries decomp, so two numbers that multiply to -24 and add to -5 or -8 and 3. And slice and dice that. Myself, I'm going to just do Coca Cola Shuffle, so 4 times -2 is -8. And I need a 3. Oops. It should be 2x, it should be 1x. So 4 times -2 and plus 3. You may get that using decomp? No, because you guys didn't have to add the x squared. If I use Coca Cola Shuffle, I've got to add the x squared. You may get 4x squared plus 3 times x squared subtract 2. Yep.
Why did you use
I just use Coca Cola Shuffle just to save time. You can use decomp, you'll get the same answer. Did you get the same answer?
Because I did the product was negative 6 and some was negative 5.
Product is negative. What's that?
I just did the product was negative 6 and some was negative 5.
Okay, so you did some product. No problem. And it's good to do it now and not during the quizzes or tests. It starts with a 4x squared. You can only use some product that starts with x squared or in this case x to the 4th. If it doesn't, you have to do decomp, multiply the first number times the last number. Okay? And we're going to do that later on today to distinguish between when to use decomp, sum product, when to use difference of squares, when to use grouping. You might get this using decomp? One? No? Yes? What did you get? Oh, you use this? Did you get this? Oh, okay. Right on. So if you were to get this, you get negative 8, negative 5. Yeah, it works. I can check it in 10 seconds. That's what you would get using decomp or Coca Cola Shuffle. But the trick to this one is just recognizing it is a decomp question. Talk to me, Gabby.
Can you do that question, but you like do it offline without a short cut? Like just to show how to do it?
Yep. For sure. So this, the second step for decomp would be keep the first and the last. And this is probably why. Probably because you put a negative 8x and 3x. It actually should be negative 8x squared and 3x squared. The middle terms are x squares. So good question. When you do that, then it's going to work out nicely. When you slice and dice, take a 4x squared out. And x squared subtract 2. Take a 3 out. You get x squared subtract 2. Pardon me. And you get your x squared subtract 2 times the leftover, whatever is not underlined, 4x squared plus 3z. Okay, so your middle terms aren't x's, they're x squares. Good question. Okay, difference of squares, same thing. It starts with an x to the 4th. It starts with an x to the 4th. You can still do some product, decomp. In this case, go ahead and do square root, one addition, one subtraction. Try that one on your own. This one, the square root of x to the 4th is what? What times itself equals x to the 4th? X squared, good job. And similarly, the square root of y to the 4th is y squared. One addition, one subtraction. Check. Anything else we can do? Anything else tricky about this one? Yari? Yes. With the subtraction one, you can do a difference of squares again. Okay, so this is called what I call it is a double difference of squares. So go ahead and start this one. Don't get half your marks by doing it once. Get all of your marks by doing it twice. So x squared plus y squared. This is square root of x squared, x times x. Square root of y squared, y times y. One addition, one subtraction. There's nothing you can do here because there's an addition sign. You want to square root this one, but you cannot unless there's a subtraction sign in the middle. Talk to me?
Yeah, so just like instead of writing out the same just square
No, because that would be the exact same thing multiplied by itself 2 times. And these ones have different signs. Good question. I like it. If it was x plus y times x plus y, it'd be the same thing as x plus y all squared. Okay, let's look at this homework. And it's going to be one I want to give you a little bit of advice on. Again, if you get big numbers, so you're going to do decomp on this one, 2 numbers are multiply to 900 and add to 60. Not medium difficulty, 30 and 30. However, probably, you can square root it, like we did the first ones. And then take the sign on the second one, put the exponent outside the bracket. So these ones, perfect square trinomials, don't do decomp. Try to get used to recognizing these as perfect square trinomials. And then these homeworks, you're gonna, again, we just did x to the fourths. You know what to do. It's just a normal sum product or decomp question. And then you got some multiple choice questions there. Okay, so we're moving on to page 40, factoring review. This is what we're going to do tomorrow. This is how do you know what to use on the test? How do I know whether to use difference of squares or sum product or decomp or sum product? They both have three terms. You have to know, not so much this mumbo jumbo, although I do like this. Remember the first step is GCF. First step is GCF. But it's a lot easier to understand this than all those words. So go to page 41. And let's talk. This is pretty much the most important part of the unit, knowing what to do when we see a question on tomorrow's quiz or Monday's test. And the first step, let's underline it 2 or 3 times, is DCF. Always take out a 5 if you can take out a 5. Always take out a 2x if you can take a 2x out of every term. And just these types of questions, write down this example, it might just be a GCF question and you're done. Take the greatest common factor and lowest exponent and you're done. Or it might be a 2-stepper where you take a 5 out and then you still have to do something. If you have 2 terms, it's a difference of squares question. There's only 2 things you can do with 2 terms. Take a GCF out, maybe you're done. Square root, 1 addition, 1 subtraction, and you're done. Or maybe take a GCF out and then do difference of squares. Okay, so an example of this, let's write it down. X squared subtract 25. When we factor this, it's x subtract 5 times x plus 5. That's what I mean by differences of squares. And it has to have a subtraction sign in the middle. Another example of this, the harder example, is 2x squared subtract 50. 2 terms. It has to be GCF or difference of squares. If you don't take a 2 out of here, you're going to get 0. This is left blank too many times on a test. You can't do it unless you take a 2 out. First step. Always the first step. When you take a 2 out, then you can go ahead and get both of your marks, because the 2 is the hard part. Let's do square root. 1 addition, 1 subtraction is the fun part. But you can't get there unless you take a 2 out. And remember, don't forget to bring the 2 down. Okay, and then we get to 3 terms. 3 terms is either sum product or decomp, or Coca Cola Shuffle. It is sum product if it starts with x squared. Starts with x squared. If it's a trinomial that starts with x squared, here's an example. The product is -20, the sum is -1, and when you find the numbers -5 and +4, you put them in the brackets. Everyone write this down, please. Okay, this is probably the most important notes all unit, including the examples. Thank you. We got 8 minutes left and we'll be done. So when do you use sum product? We had that question earlier. When it starts with x squared, or in the case of we just did, x to the 4th. When do we use decomp? When it starts with 2x squared, 3x squared, 5x squared, and you can take a 5 out. When that happens, you have to create a grouping question. Okay, so we have 2x squared, subtract 7x plus 6. So it starts with 2x squared, nothing, this middle term doesn't divide by 2. So decomp question. Two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to -7, or -3 and -4. You write down the first term, you write down the last term, the middle term decomposes, and I'm not going to do the rest. Then you do slice and dice and get the answer. So that's decomp. When it starts with 2x squared or 3x squared or 5x squared, and you can't take a GCF out. Remember, that's why this step is so important. Step 1, you can take a 5 out of everything, take a 5 out, and the decomp question might become the sum product question. And you'll save your full marks, and you'll make the numbers a lot easier for yourself if you take a GCF out. Lastly, the grouping is 4 terms. That's just this. Okay, that's the grouping question. Write down slice and dice. And hopefully you understand what that means. GCF for the first 2 terms, GCF for the last 2 terms. Okay, that is our summary of factoring and how to recognize what to do tomorrow and more importantly on Monday. We'll be doing that at Math Help today. So if you need to make up half your marks on a quiz or 5% on a quest or a test, stay, or if you just want to review for the test and quiz tomorrow and Monday. Okay, I want you to do the next 3 questions and try to figure out how to do them. You got 5 minutes to do the next 3 questions. They're not for homework. Go ahead and let's see, you can go after him. Okay, do the next 3 questions. Try to figure it out. These are going to get better and better the more we do them. Okay, and the more you recognize them. 2 terms, difference of squares. 3 terms, either sum product starts with x squared, or decomp doesn't start with x squared. 4 terms, grouping, slice and dice. God bless an awesome day.